Novak Djokovic, the world's top men's tennis player, will not be competing in the Australian Open after border authorities revoked his visa for failing to meet the country's strict COVID-19 vaccination requirement. The tennis star had received a medical exemption from Tennis Australia in order to compete in the Grand Slam tournament, but the Australian Border Force announced Wednesday that the exemption was not sufficient. The Australian Border Force will continue to ensure that those who arrive at our border comply with our laws and entry requirements, the agency wrote in a statement. The ABF can confirm that Mr. Djokovic failed to provide appropriate evidence to meet the entry requirements to Australia, and his visa has been subsequently cancelled. As a result, the Serbian tennis player will be deported from Australia immediately, border officials said. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison issued a statement on Twitter about Djokovic's deportation, writing, "Mr. Djokovic's visa has been cancelled. Rules are rules, especially when it comes to our borders. No one is above these rules. Our strong border policies have been critical to Australia having one of the lowest death rates in the world from COVID. We are continuing to be vigilant." Djokovic landed in Melbourne, Wednesday, and was reportedly denied entry after his team mistakenly requested a subclass visa, which does not apply to anyone with a medical exemption from the COVID-19 vaccine, according to the British news outlet The Times. Just one day prior, Djokovic had announced he was granted the medical exemption to compete in the Grand Slam tournament. On Wednesday, the Associated Press also reported Djokovic would need to prove vaccine exemption ahead of the Australian Open or leave the country. While the Victorian government and Tennis Australia may permit a non-vaccinated player to compete in the Australian Open, it is the Commonwealth government that will enforce our requirements at the Australian border, said Home Affairs Minister, Karen Andrews. If an arriving individual is not vaccinated, they must provide acceptable proof that they cannot be vaccinated for medical reasons to be able to access the same travel arrangement as fully vaccinated travelers. The medical exception was mandatory for Djokovic to compete in the tournament, and would allow him to do so regardless of his vaccination status, which he has never publicly confirmed. Following Djokovic's announcement but before the star touched down in Australia, Australian Open director Craig Tiley defended the decision to allow the 34-year-old tennis star to participate in the tournament regardless of vaccination status, according to Australia's ABC News. Tiley told reporters before the star's visa was denied that the process for entry was completely legitimate application and process and insisted that Djokovic was not given special treatment. "We do everything we possibly can to give everyone an equal and fair opportunity to come into the country," Tiley said, per the outlet. "We have been saying from the beginning that anyone coming into Australia or coming into the ground in the Melbourne precinct would have to be vaccinated or would have to have a medical exemption approved by a medical practitioner or by a panel." Novak Djokovic wins Wimbledon men's singles final, picking up 20th Grand Slam title. In a previous statement obtained by People from Tennis Australia, who run the Grand Slam tournament, organizers said that Djokovic was granted the medical exemption following a rigorous review process involving 2 separate independent panels of medical experts. One of those was the Independent Medical Exemption Review Panel appointed by the Victorian Department of Health, said the statement. They assessed all applications to see if they met the Australian Technical Advisory Group on Immunisation Guidelines. Neither Australian Open officials nor Djokovic has publicly acknowledged his visa cancellation. Djokovic is a 9-time Australian Open singles champion. He is currently on his way to scoring a record 21st Grand Slam victory.